the 96th Annual Oscars!
This is the Merrill Cultural Center.
What do you mean, why am I holding this then?
It says best mama ever. Wait a second, how did you get in here?
What do you mean, I just climbed the hill?
You were gonna wear that to the Oscars? What are you, the red carpet?
What do you mean by that?
Anyways, welcome to the Everett program's 5th annual student showcase! My name is Fatima.
My name is Lily.
My name is Alex.
And we'll be emceeing this event for you tonight.
We are so incredibly grateful to all of you who could join us today, whether that's in person or over Zoom, to celebrate the project achievements of all our Everett students this past year. For those of you who are joined over Zoom, Everett fellow Ivana Mendez will be monitoring that chat and able to take any questions, issues, or concerns if you have any about the program tonight. So everyone on Zoom, tune in, get comfortable, relax, strap in, and for you lovely people in the audience today, feel free to grab some refreshments and relax. There will be intermission halfway through our program tonight if you need a bathroom break.
But first, a land acknowledgement. Before we begin, I will be reading off the land acknowledgement developed in partnership with Imam Mustan, Tribal Band Chairman and the Imam Mustan Relearning Program at the UCSC Arboretum. The land on which we gather is the unceded territory of the Awaswas-speaking UP tribe. The Imam Mustan Tribal Band, comprised of the descendants of indigenous people taken to Mission Santa Cruz and San Juan Bautista during the Spanish colonization of the Central Coast, is today working hard to restore traditional stewardship practices on these lands and heal from historical trauma.
Since our activities are shared digitally, let's take a moment to consider the legacy of colonization embedded within technological structures, including the equipment and high-speed internet, which are not available in many indigenous communities. Even the technologies that are central to the art that we make leave significant carbon footprints contributing to changing climates that disproportionately affect indigenous people worldwide. We acknowledge that settler colonizers from Europe used stolen and enforced labor of African people to subsequently develop the land. We honor the lives of those who have endured and continue to endure in the face of settler colonialism and white supremacy. And with that, to get started, I'd like to introduce the Everett Program's Executive Director, Dr. Chris Benner.
Well, thank you. Thank you all for coming tonight. This is the 5th annual Student Project Showcase. We actually have another slide that there's I am, in case you can recognize me. So what you're going to hear tonight is students talking about projects that they've implemented over the last year. And it'll be a reflection about their own learning process, as well as what they were able to implement with a community partner. This is the end of a 4-course sequence that they have all gone through that's managed by the Everett program. And one of our key philosophies in the Everett program is solidarity, not service, or solidarity, not saviorism. Students aren't going out working with communities to somehow, provide service to those community partners. They are building a partnership and bringing the life experience that they've had before they got to UC Santa Cruz, the skills and experiences they've learned in our program around technology use, around collaborative teamwork, about sometimes having difficult conversations across difference and trying to work through challenging issues, in partnership with learning from their community partners, as they're also doing work to help support the social justice and environmental sustainability goals of the community partners they're working with. So that's what you're going to hear. It's really exciting. But it's also important to understand the bigger context of these projects, because this whole program started from student activists in 1998, which is 25 years ago, I think, if I'm counting right, deciding that they were interested not just in learning about social problems in the world. They wanted practical, hands-on skills for being part of the solution. And from that simple idea has emerged a program that we think is really a model for applied learning around praxis and sort of this combination of reflecting, thinking, acting, making change in the world, coming back and reflecting on what they have learned in that process. And in that effort, really being the authors of their own education. And part of this is recognizing that, the university sits on unceded territory, right? The university has elements of it which are a colonial enterprise and has a model of knowledge and education in which professors and the knowledge that's produced at the university is privileged knowledge that then gets shared with others if those in the university so care. And the knowledge that's generated in the Everett program recognizes that knowledge is generated in communities in social struggle in ways that's really important for us at the university to learn from as we also work together to try and create a better world. And so part of that is over the years we have built this model of education that is really about the whole person. There's the heads-on justice work, trying to understand the structural and systemic causes of social problems in the world, so it doesn't become blaming individuals and individual responsibility, but we're trying to understand the structural causes. It's about using technology in hands-on context to improve communication and structure information in a way that makes more profound change. And it's really about understanding our hearts, our motivations, what brings us to the work, and how do we work collaboratively with people who share those goals, even coming from very different backgrounds and experiences. And we have built this in a model that people learn, do at higher and higher levels of sophistication. And so it starts with students in the first introductory course to the program, where the students you're going to hear present tonight were a year ago. So anyone who's currently enrolled in Sociology 30A, the first course in the class, please raise your hand. Hi. Yes. A year from now, many of you will be here. We have the students in the program who are presenting now, who then, many of them have gone on to become fellows in the program. And the fellows play a role in mentoring the younger students. They teach technology labs, they're project guides, they help put together this whole program. So any fellow in the program, raise your hand now. Yep. Yay! And then when fellows graduate, funding dependent, we're able to keep on 2 to 4 of them in an executive fellowship role. And they work in a full-time capacity to help support and mentor the fellows and the students in the program, support the professors in the program to make sure it all entirely runs. And we have 3 executive fellows this year. Let's see, Kat Bajaj, where are you, Kat? Kat's right here, yay! Phoenix Woodall is over there. And on Zoom is Isabel Aguirre. Hi, Isabel. And then this year we are especially pleased to have a visiting assistant professor who was the professor who ran this whole course and has worked with students throughout the semester. And it's just been such a treat to have Dorothy Santos with us this year. And we also have a really important relationship with alumni of the program who help support the students and serve as job references and connections out there. Any alumni in the program? UV, I see you there. Raise your hand. Any other alumni? So it happens with the community. It couldn't happen without that. What else do I want to say about that? I think that's it. You'll get a sense of the program. Come talk to me afterwards, or any other fellows or students if you want to learn more about it. But we have a really special treat tonight of one of our project partners this year. someone we met a couple years ago now. He's a filmmaker. Tran is a former foster youth. He's a formerly incarcerated filmmaker who started his journey of cinematography while he was incarcerated in San Quentin, which is where we first met him. As some of our students in the Gateways Project, working with people in a film production unit inside San Quentin that Tom was one of the co-founders of, called Forward This Productions. And it's a professional video production team of people who happen to be incarcerated that is really intentional about the relationships they build, both internally and with external partners, and really producing a video at a time in a way that will transform prison culture and really help change the narrative in our society about how we understand those who are system impacted and the humanity and leadership and knowledge of people who are incarcerated and the things that we can learn in being in partnership with them. Today, Thanh is the director of the documentary Finding Ma, which he may tell us a little bit about, and he's a policy associate at the Ella Baker Center for Human Rights, where he's providing leadership statewide and working with coalitions around new state and local policy campaigns, and also helping grow their Inside-Outside Fellowship program. Thanh, we're so deeply honored to be in partnership with you, and please come up to the stage and share a few thoughts.
Thank you. I just want to say, Santa Cruz, y'all got so much swagger. I swear to God, like, y'all make me feel overdressed and underdressed at the same time, for real. So I just want to shout out to y'all real quick. And also, if y'all know, like Chris named the beginning, my project was Finding Ma. Shout out to everybody who donated to our project last Giving Day. Anybody donated? Ooh. Shout out, come on. I need to follow y'all all on Instagram. Y'all getting a follow for that, shout out. Right, so I want to thank y'all for supporting that project. So today, we're here talking about uplifting community voices. And I want to share a brief story real quick. So, like we named at the top of it, I'm formerly incarcerated. I was incarcerated in San Quentin when the pandemic first hit, right? And for folks who don't know what happened, right, first San Quentin, there was no COVID cases at San Quentin. And then the administration decided to ship a bus of over 100 people from a prison that was having an outbreak and brought them to San Quentin. And then once the outbreak started happening at San Quentin, all of the guards literally left and we were locked in our cells. And I remember being locked in my cell for months. And the first time ever they let me come out of my cell, I'm walking outside, and as soon as I walk outside, I'm seeing all of these incarcerated people just looking up. I was like, what is everybody looking at? So I rush outside, and I look out, and I'm looking up, and I saw it. It was the sky. And it hit me so deeply in that moment that the cruelty of incarceration deprived us of something as simple and beautiful as the blue sky we see every day. And I'll land the plane here. The first time I shared this story was in community with the Stop San Quentin outbreak. Anybody familiar with the Stop San Quentin outbreak? Shout out Phoenix. I know Phoenix was in it, right? I share that to say that that story that I just shared with y'all was one of the many stories that we were able to lift out of prison and into the community to highlight the injustices that was happening on the inside. And it was this partnership between community and people who did not have the opportunities to speak or have their voices heard. It was this collaboration that was able to bring the care, the intention, and also the freedom that pushed me and so many other people out of San Quentin into freedom today, right? So I just want to share that brief example of how uplifting voices is important. But now I want to pivot. Yes, it's important to uplift voices, but what we need is more than just upliftment. What we need is the empowerment of voices. We need an investment in voices. When I first heard the term uplifting voices, and as a currently incarcerated person at the time, I remember so many people was like, hey, we're here to lift up your voice, right? And that felt very transactional. And it felt, frankly, very lazy. To say that you care, but you care only enough to do one action of lifting. But the real work, the real investment that is required to create change and to create the society that we want to live in requires more than one act of lifting. It requires an investment, and it requires empowerment. And one of the things Chris said right at the top that I really appreciate, it's not about saviorism, right? When I was incarcerated, I was not seeking to be saved. I was seeking to be empowered. I was seeking opportunity. I was seeking to be heard. So when we're thinking about today and we're thinking about uplifting voices, right? I want y'all to think about what is the next step of investment that I could be doing, that you in these seats could be doing. What is that thing that I can be doing more than just simply lifting up a voice and creating a platform? And I'll share something else. So yesterday I received an award from the Society of Professional Journalists for community journalism. And they lifted up my voice, right? It was great, it was cool, it was a vibe, right? So they had me on stage and they said, here, Tom, here's this little trophy, good work. And then they kicked me off the stage and I went back to my life, right? And what real change happened after that? They got to pat themselves on the back and said, yeah, we gave an award to a formerly incarcerated person. We hella woke, right? They got to do that. But time, I got to go back to my struggle. I got to go back to my circumstances. I had to go back to the survival that was needed to carry my family and my community forward. And I share that with you to remind us all today that this is a beautiful event. And the intention is very beautiful. And the thought of uplifting people is a very warm thought, but I want to bring you into power. I want to invite you to step into your power and think about how you can invest and empower community voices today. So with that, I won't belabor you all, and I'll pass it to the next speaker. And I thank y'all.
Thank you so much. All right, so let me introduce the showcase format and how we're going to present. For this year's showcase, we've divided the presentation by project impact categories, which is noted in the event program for this evening. The impact categories are 1, digital activism, 2, rethinking tech education, and 3, building organizational capacity. Feel free to visit our project website to get a deeper look at all of our presentations today. And then for today's programming, halfway through the presentations, we will have a Q&A, followed by a brief intermission to grab snacks and use the restroom. At the end of the presentations, we will have another Q&A and have a raffle for both in-person and remote folks. So stay tuned for that. Reminder, please save your questions for the projects for our Q&A sessions. And for those of you joining us remotely, we want to give you a few reminders. First, make sure you are muted during all presentations. And second, we'd love to make this as interactive as we can, so please turn on your video if you are able to and ask questions during the Q&A.
Now we are moving into our first set of students whose projects all share the common theme of digital activism, starting with Solidarity in Salinas.
My name is Rio Herrera, and the title of my project is Solidarity in Salinas. So Salinas, just like the rest of California, is currently facing a cost of living crisis. In fact, it's among the most expensive places to live in the United States in 2023. And yet, for some, Salinas is an exceptionally profitable place. Termed America's salad bowl, the farms in Salinas contributed the majority of the $4.6 billion in agriculture revenue for Monterey County last year. The essential question within this context is this: who are the farm laborers constrained to survive on poverty wages amidst one of the steepest cases of economic inequality in the country? Well, around half of them are indigenous. And of the indigenous farm workers in Salinas, the vast majority are indigenous immigrants from Oaxaca, Mexico. This makes Mixteco, an indigenous Oaxacan language, the second most spoken language in the United States on Salinas farms, behind Spanish. As I go through my presentation and after you leave today, I want you to be thinking about what it might be like for indigenous Oaxacan farm workers who are not just growing produce or growing profit, but building their families and raising children in Salinas. And I can tell you a little bit about what it's like, particularly in relation to education. Of indigenous farm workers in Salinas, 0% have completed education past the primary school level. And the average number of school years had is 4.5 years. Yet, today, 70% report having children who are under the age of 12 years old. And what this means is that there are hundreds or even thousands of indigenous Oaxacan children who are attending elementary schools in Salinas and who are interacting with an education system that was not built with their success in mind. For my project, I partnered with El Centro Binacional para el Desarrollo Indígena Oaxaqueño, or the Binational Center for Indigenous Oaxacan Development. CBDIO, for short, is an indigenous-led mutual aid organization that provides services such as translation, civic participation workshops and education, and other forms of leadership and activism. In January of this year, CBDIO teamed up with a group of indigenous Oaxacan parents whose children attend Santa Rita Elementary School in Salinas. At Santa Rita, there was a culture of racial discrimination, as well as a systemic lack of language accommodations for Mixteco-speaking families. In response, the parents formed El Comité de la Voz Mixteco, which is a committee that's dedicated to campaigning for policy changes at the district level. Some of their campaign demands included the employment of Mixteco-speaking staff, the banning of the microaggression Oaxaquita, and the implementation of after-school programs in Mixteco. CBDIO and the Everett program connected through the organization's communication need. They were looking for a way to document the campaign in a form that could be accessible through their website. And our solution for them was a short documentary that would follow the campaign through the spring of 2023. The technology involved in my project included audio and visual equipment, an AI transcription software called Descript, and the video editing software Adobe Premiere Rush. So from January to March, I was having preliminary meetings with with CBDIO to discuss the narrative direction of the video and the themes they wanted to be incorporated in it. I researched a lot about the organization and the context of the campaign, and I submitted my project and budget proposals, which the Everett program approved. Then, from March to July, I collected footage at the bi-weekly campaign meetings of the parents developing their campaign. On July 14th, after months of hard work, the committee won the district vote, which means that the Santa Rita School District agreed to budget in their list of demands. This is a huge historic win, not just for the indigenous Oaxacan communities in Salinas, but for the state of education in California as a whole. After the campaign formally ended in July with the district vote, I spent the summer transcribing the 20+ hours of footage that I'd collected using Descript, and I created some very rough drafts that I built upon in collaboration with CBDIO. And from then to now, I've been working to finalize the documentary, which I hope will be live on the CBDIO website in January of 2024. This project contributed to my growth as a leader for social change in numerous ways. One of the most impactful lessons that I learned is the power of civic participation. It was inspiring to be witness to a group of leaders who, though they were often made to feel like they literally didn't have a voice, be so loud that the school district could not ignore their demands. Another lesson that I learned was the importance of having a growth mindset, and that learning is not just a moment but a process. And the last lesson that I learned is to ask for help when I need it, but also to accept it when it's offered to me. Because it can be very difficult to admit to people that you're struggling, but relying on community support only serves to make you a more effective leader. Thank you.
Thank you, Rio. Now introducing the next project, MVI.
Yeah!
Hi everyone, my name is Tran Avila, and I worked in collaboration with MVI for mapping sustainability and digitalizing community work. So what is MVI? The Monteverde Institute was founded in 1986, located in the Punta Arenas region of Costa Rica, with a mission to promote ecotourism and sustainability throughout the town of Monteverde and the country of Costa Rica. So the project was to conduct interviews with 6 of the Monteverde's partner organizations and lead workshops focused on tech tools based on the needs of the organizations. And all this media would be uploaded to the ArcGIS story map created by the cohort from last year. So the interviews were conducted in the 6 organizations and were a way to demonstrate all the work that was being done in the community of Monteverde. It was a way to highlight the smaller committees in each organization and talk about their goals, their projects, and some highlights over the years. It was a good way to get their word out there and update it on the map, since I think on average from the last year we got about 1,000 views, which is pretty big. So the workshops were based on a survey that was conducted by NVI and sent out around June. This assessed all the needs from the partner organizations to determine what we needed to focus our curriculum on, and they all answered that they needed the most help with TikTok, Instagram, and Canva, which are 3 softwares that are accessible through all digital devices. And we created a curriculum that would teach people how to use it. Specifically, Canva was graphic design and what it means to use a color, what it means to use an image, and how you can make an image more powerful. And our goal was to just improve social media presence within their organizations to help them start creating visually compelling content. These workshops were conducted in the organization too. We conducted 2 of them through our project implementation, and the people attending were usually the executives at the partner organizations. That way, we would send them a digital version of our workshop, and they could continue to pass it down so that hopefully more people in their organization will learn these tech tools as well. So our project began in January, but we didn't decide what we wanted to do exactly until February. So from February until August 31st, we did our project implementation. Some of the highlights during this time were in June and July, because that's when we finally decided what our curriculum was going to look like. And in July, we began translating our curriculum into Spanish and creating visually compelling presentations. When we translated it into Spanish, my project was originally with 2 other members, and we're all fluent Spanish speakers, so we would translate them ourselves. And we would check in with our family members to make sure this was understandable and legible, and then we would send them to Irene, who was our communications director, to make sure that this was the right language to use for Costa Rican Spanish speakers. So some of the skills I learned during this project was Canva. Canva was a software that I have been familiar with, but using graphic design was not something I was very strong in, so I got to become more confident in that. algorithms. Because we were using TikTok and Instagram, we learned more about how to use popular sounds and hashtags to draw in more viewers and have more people interact with our profiles. Video editing for the interviews, we edited every video to cut out the ums, the breathing, anything that didn't want to be put out there, and we would, sorry, now I'm saying on. We would transcribe everything that was said in the videos and then translate them into English. Because these videos were going to be published onto the ArcGIS story map, we wanted it to be accessible for people who don't speak Spanish and for people who are interested in collaborating with MVI in the future who are non-Spanish speakers. Audio editing and using story maps on ArcGIS, because ArcGIS is a very hard website to use. And public speaking in Spanish specifically. I am a fluent Spanish speaker, but conversational Spanish is much more different from informative teaching Spanish, so that was something I got to gain more confidence in as well. Above there you can see an example of our story map, which is linked on my practicum and on my website if you want to check it out. That's an example of some video editing we were doing with the president of AVI, San Luis, who is in charge of doing committee work with cemeteries, building trails that are accessible for the community, and other things as well. And this is an example of our workshop that we did on graphic design on Canva. Some of the issues that I faced and lessons that I learned during this trip was to stick to the itinerary. Because it was originally a group project, some of our members failed to stick to the itinerary, and we had to make multiple changes throughout the project that would impact our initial goal for the project and ruined our bigger impact that we would have in the community. As well as having everyone arrive at the same time. Both years with both cohorts, the members were not able to arrive at the same time, which meant that we were able to do less things throughout the project. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Tammy. Now I'll go ahead and hand the mic off to Lights, Camera, and Community.
Alright, hello everyone. I'm part of the Lights, Camera, Community project here at the Everett program, and I just wanted to tell you a little bit about my project and how it ended up going. So let's cut to the chase. There's an irrefutable relationship between the foster care system and the prison system. In fact, around 70% of youth who exit the foster care system as adults will eventually be arrested at least once before the age of 26. And our director, Tran, was part of that statistic. But the thing about statistics is that they're just that. They're just numbers. They don't tell us anything at face value. And there are stories behind those numbers. And we had to tell Tan's story. So Tran came to the Everett program looking for assistance in his new documentary, Finding Mom, which navigates through different family dynamics through the foster care system, the incarceration system, and a mother who's experiencing houselessness in Sacramento. In fact, this is actually a picture that was taken during the film process of them reuniting with their mother. And so we decided to come up with a project that was a social media campaign in order to raise awareness and create anticipation for the film's release. And we used different platforms such as TikTok, Instagram, and editing software like Adobe Premiere Pro and Canva. So as for the project implementation and timeline, we started creating the plan in around January. This included a budget as well as tasks that we were meant to do before the film shoot in May. We did a film shoot in May, which was a 2-hour-long interview of the producers, and we kept that footage so that we could splice it up into content that we were planning to use over the summer. Because our schedules did not align over the summer, we decided to move it virtually and each take care of one social media platform, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. What ended up happening was, unfortunately, one of our members ceased all communication, and that member was the one who held our 2-hour-long interview, which was the bulk of our content at the time. So as we scrambled to align the schedules, it unfortunately dropped morale in the group, and we did lose another project member, making this a solo project. We had to completely revitalize the plan in September to create a satisfying conclusion to the project, and that was posting once a week for the last month of the project. We did eventually recover the footage, and we were able to use it for a little bit of the content in that last month. And so, as for our skills learned, we used a professional software, Adobe Premiere Pro, which had a really large learning curve, but ultimately was very satisfying to learn. We used different forms of film equipment, such as cameras, traditional lights, and reflectors. And learning project development software, we used the platform Notion, which was really helpful on setting to-do tasks, to-do lists, and just tracking our progress. And as for our contributions and the lessons learned, we decided that in the future we will try to continue the social media campaign, but we will not be doing it as an official Everett program project. As for our contributions, as Tran said, we need to be empowering the stories, not uplifting, of those who are impacted by these systems. We learned a lot of invaluable lessons from Tran as a speaker. I'm sure you guys all heard, he's a very charismatic man. And he served as a mentor in this project, which was very, very helpful. The most valuable lessons that we learned was the power of film and social media and how we take it for granted, but it can be such a powerful tool. And also the importance of structure. I think a big part of the demoralization in this project was that we didn't have a set structure of due dates, and I think that that kind of led to the plan falling apart at some points. As well as also making sure that your content is kept in multiple safe keeps that a lot of people have access to not run into a problem like we did. As for the impact on the community partner, we received a 100% growth in the Instagram engagement since last year. This included revamping the Instagram page that was a little bit deserted before we came onto the project, as well as understanding a deeper connection and understanding of Tom's story. We also purchased much needed equipment during the film process to help with the production process. And now I want to turn a question to you guys. Was the connection between the foster care experience and incarceration surprising to you? And if you would like to support Tom and his film further, please go ahead and follow the Instagram @FindingMaFilm. Thank you. Now we can go ahead and dive into our next set of student presentations who all share the common goal of rethinking tech education, starting with gateways.
Hi guys, I'm Alex and this is Sammy and we are Gateways Digital Media Classes.
So tonight I will start out with a little context about Gateways. Gateways is a group of student-led projects that's focusing on addressing mass incarceration and recidivism through technology. The term recidivism is when a person gets incarcerated, gets out, and returns back to incarceration. That repetitive cycle is called recidivism. The U.S. has one of the highest incarceration rates in the world, with approximately 2 million people incarcerated to date. With 5% of the world's population, the U.S. has 25% of the world's prison population. On a personal note, I am a formerly incarcerated individual that has experienced the cycle of recidivism, and I know how hard it is to get out of that cycle without the proper resources and support.
For our project in classes, the core technology that we decided to teach the incarcerated community was iMovie. And this was for several key reasons. Number one, iMovie is widely available on all Apple devices, including some iPhones and iPads. And secondly, iMovie is also an incredibly user-friendly beginning video editing software. A lot of the incarcerated community has been disconnected from technology for a long time, and we felt that iMovie was a powerful tool to bridge this gap. It was also a useful tool because it's an entrepreneurial skill that can be used both commercially and personally. It improved digital literacy and tech familiarity, which once again promoted reintegration into a now technological society. It was also a creative outlet for the incarcerated community, and we felt that once released, it would also be a tool for community engagement.
So we started our project in January by creating a lesson plan and curriculum. We implemented our project over the summer, from June through August. Through the project, our main goal was to refrain from using the banking method. The banking model of education is an approach that sees students as a container in which teachers deposit knowledge. As the Gateways project, we wanted to utilize the peer-to-peer model where the teachers and students are actively learning from each other.
So the reason we wanted to utilize a peer-to-peer model as well was because we wanted to move the focus away from a traditional power structure in a classroom, because the incarcerated community is already so strictly regulated. However, doing this, we ran into some challenges, and the first one was that we couldn't fully connect to the students as we liked, and this was because of the significant institutional barriers. We were strictly surveilled, and there were many protocols, and this was made clear to us that we were being monitored. There was also limited conversation and censored material usage, which limited the creative expression of the students. Additionally, all the staff at the correctional facility incorporated some language such as inmates and also had really bad and negative mindsets toward the students, which also found its way into their vocabulary and mindsets while learning, and this also limited our progress. To address this, we used several tools while teaching. We had some tools like a traditional classroom, such as handouts, readings, and reference sheets, but we felt what was most effective while promoting the peer-to-peer method was demonstrations in conjunction with practice and sharing with all the students. So how this would work was that we would pull up iMovie as a tool on the screen, then we would demonstrate the tool on a clip. We would allow the students set practice time, and what was most important was the sharing. Students who were creatively invested were able to share what they learned, and we were able to share tools that they were able to use uniquely to students who weren't able to understand it just yet.
So lessons learned. One of our main lessons we learned is that institutional barriers are significant when employing the peer-to-peer method, especially when working in a correctional facility. Due to this, open and honest communication was vital, both when working with each other and when employing the peer-to-peer and connecting with students as well. We also learned the importance of creative expression, allowing our students to express themselves, motivated them to engage in our material and also to engage with each other.
How do we feel that our project contributed to the issue of mass incarceration and recidivism? Well, first, we feel like we promoted reintegration through technological familiarity and digital learning. And this is incredibly important because a lot of the incarcerated community does not have access to the tools that we have today and take for granted. In addition, something that while entering into the project, we underestimated was the power of creative expression. I think emphasizing creative expression really allowed the students to be more engaged with the projects, engaging with the work as well as with each other. For the future of our project, we think that some possible more advanced tools could be taught, such as Adobe Premiere Rush or Pro, and along with more time for the students to work on their creative projects. We also think that we should support goal building inside the correctional facilities. A lot of the students did not know what they would do once they were released, and this is something that leads back to the cycle of recidivism. And if we're able to promote and support these conversations, we can really reduce this. The most valuable lesson we learned, aside from the teaching and the technical aspect, I feel is talking to people as people. We were only able to fully utilize peer-to-peer once we were fully comfortable with the students and they were open to learning and communicating. So how can we all support the formerly incarcerated community? I think the first issue is changing the public mindset. There's a huge negative connotation towards the incarcerated community, and a lot of people don't know that they are also people too. One mistake should not define them. We should also support classes that focus on a creative aspect. Like I said, creative expression is overlooked both in our world and in the incarcerated community. We should also support programs that can help with reintegration and post-release support. Programs that help bridge the digital divide between us and them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sammy and Alex. Now we can introduce Impactathons.
Yeah!
Hi everybody, I'm Ava, this is Alex, Thomas, and Kian, and we are the Impactathons. Just to start off, an Impactathon is a short workshop-style event that emphasizes social justice, collaboration with community partners, and peer-to-peer learning in order to increase confidence within the community to pursue futures in technology. So, due to lack of access to educational technology and underrepresentation in the tech industry, there are significant barriers for youth in Salinas to pursue careers in STEM fields. And Impactathons focuses on cultivating and leading workshops that teach tech tools, because we believe that by increasing access to sustainable tech resources and training, individuals will develop the skills, network, and resources to ultimately foster economic equality. Our Impactathon team worked with our partner organization, Digital Nest, to produce our 2-day summer workshop, which we titled Demystifying Data, Screenprinting for Social Change. Our core technologies that we focused on were Canva and Screenprinting, and our workshop's goal was to provide participants with a dynamic understanding of how environmental science and data justice intersect, and how utilizing screenprinting can, as a form of activism, can be used to discuss these topics.
So the project's implementation can be broken down into 2 major time frames. The first is January through March, and that time period consisted of preliminary meetings with the Digital Nest in order to address their needs and ultimately conceptualize the Impactathon. The second time frame ranged from March to July, and that time period included learning the event topic as well as our tech tool, creating our curriculum, and finalizing last-minute details for project implementation in July. One notable challenge that we faced during these time periods was a discussion of which tech tool to use in order to address themes of environmental and data justice, which were chosen in consideration that Salinas was very close to the agricultural industry. But after group discussion, we ultimately decided on Canva, as we believed that it would be a more engaging tech tool, and it facilitated the screen printing process so participants could leave with a unique physical output. Some of the major skills that we learned as a result of hosting the Impactathon was collaboration in a team setting. It was imperative to lean on each other for curriculum creation as well as facilitation, especially considering that each member of our team had different capacity and requirements. And the second major skill that we learned was the importance of a near-to-peer and peer-to-peer learning framework. It was important to frame the event as a discussion rather than a lecture in order to facilitate a 2-sided personal learning environment. Additionally, this form of learning is a more intentional form of social innovation, as it centers community members who have direct and lived experience with the issues we would be addressing.
When taking a look at our impact on the Digital Nest, there's 3 words that come to mind. It's engagement, education, and connection. So when talking about engagement, we were able to provide screens and the tools in which to screen print thanks to the Everett program. And this brought us a new interactive media in which was a physical form for the hands-on education of the students. So using this screen printing, we were able to teach both environmental and data justice to the students, specifically facilitated towards the Salinas community. And when talking about connection, we were able to create a sense of community using the near-to-peer and peer-to-peer frameworks, which is very close to both the hearts of the Impactathons team and the Digital Nest.
So, the most valuable lesson we learned is that small directed efforts can have an outsized impact. In the pictures, you can see the participants learning screen printing, and what we hope they walked away with is not just a cool shirt, which they definitely did walk away with, but also with more confidence in their ability to engage with tech. Digital Nest and Impactathon use the learning of a specific tech tool to inspire others to learn, to enthusiastically explore other tech tools. Not everybody gets the opportunity to have an event, to collaborate on an event like we did with Digital Nest over the summer, but you can still leave a strong impact on somebody close to you and empower them to pursue a career in tech. Thank you.
All right, talk about an impact.
I know that's right.
Okay, let's give it up for all our presenters. Now we will be moving on to our first round of Q&A, so I'd like to invite all the project teams that just presented back on stage to answer any questions. We'll be taking in-person questions first. I'll just call on hands, and our executive fellow Kat will be handing the mic over to any questions. Now's your time to ask the questions.
Chatty crowd, huh?
We can also take this time, there are some questions that have been asked over Zoom, which I believe Ivana and Liz can go ahead and facilitate for us.
Testing. Thank you so much. All right, so our first question that we have received from the Zoom chat is for Lily. It is, what is the most common accusation that leads to engagement of graduates of the foster care system with law enforcement or the criminal system?
Could you repeat that question?
What is the most common accusation that leads to engagement of graduates of the foster care system with law enforcement or the criminal system?
I think I need that a little bit reworded, I'm sorry. I'm not
Yeah.
sure what it's asking.
Yeah, it's okay. So I guess what it really means is, what would be the most common pipeline that leads to former foster care youth coming into the law enforcement / incarceration system?
Oh, that's a good question. Let me think about that real quick.
Okay. In the meantime, Nash from the Zoom chat does have a question for Rio, and it refers to your presentation. It is, what was the most difficult challenge asking for help when you needed it?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think for me, well, I had a project, another team member working on my project with me, and they dropped out of the program back in July. And so after that, I think I kind of just felt like it was all on me, and it was also over summer when that happened, so I felt like it wasn't my place to impose on other program members, like the execs or the staff. But that's what the fellowship is for, and that's something that I definitely now, having gone through the project and in the fellowship, I don't have an issue, now asking for help. I do it pretty often. But I think it's one of those things that you can know maybe conceptually, but you don't really learn until you are in a position where you're working with a team. Yeah.
All right, our next question is for the Impactathons team. It is, there is a common trope shared within the tech sector that a lack of equity within organizations is the result of a pipeline problem. Have you been able to affirm this as a driver? If so, what, if any, disruptions do you believe are called for?
So the lack of tech is a pipeline to inequality? Is that the question?
Yeah.
Well, that's one thing in which we addressed within the Impactathons program, is that a lot of the community in Salinas, as said by Rio's project, happens to be the salad bowl of America. So a lot of them is farm work, and there seems to be a sort of lock into that position of just being farm work. But with the Digital Nest, we really tried to provide more help and create a sort of upward mobility to create more of the youth to be able to go into more of the tech world and not feel locked into that agricultural sphere.
Perfect.
And then I think I can go ahead and answer the question that was given to me earlier. I just didn't want to say any misinformation since I don't know the exact statistics, but I do remember Tom saying in a speech that he gave to us in 30A last year was that a lot of people who are in the foster care system as youth will turn to gangs as a form of community and protection. And so that is one way that people from the foster care system can end up incarcerated as well.
Thank you for your response. We have another question for Rio, and it is, how much of a burden was it to respond to the request for support you received?
Can you ask that again?
Yeah. How much of a burden was it to respond to the request for support that you received?
Like people asking me for support?
Yes.
I can't think. I don't think I was asked for much support. I had to work a lot with my project partner to make sure that I was, that the way that they wanted the story to be told was being told through the video. But I don't think that was a burden. That was just, working with a partner. I think what I was saying earlier was more that I was afraid I would have been a burden if I looked to the fellowship for help with working with the tech during the project, but that is untrue. But yeah, I don't think I had any people asking me for help that was a burden.
Thank you.
I think we have some in-person questions.
This goes for all the teams. Through your experience and looking back, hopefully you all can answer, but what is a challenge or an obstacle that you guys almost appreciate that you guys went through while this process and that journey, not only building a project, but also implementing it, but now that you guys are at this point in time that you guys can now appreciate maybe that challenge was tough in the moment, but now I feel something, I grew out of it or learned something. So the question is, what's a challenge you guys felt like you learned something from it? What?
I think I can answer for the Impactathons team. For a challenge that we faced, it was that the turnout for our event was kind of low compared to what we were expecting for our event, but this challenge kind of turned from a bud or a thorn into a rose, if that makes sense. We were able to take a look back at our project, and we were able to see that the intimate experience was able to really touch the hearts closer and create a really community feel using the peer-to-peer frameworks that we used during the event.
I think that a challenge that we faced that was sort of tough was kind of struggling to see the end goal of our project, or struggling to see what we would achieve. But now that we reached the end of it, I think we were more impactful than we realized, because Sammy was able to run into 2 students, and he really motivated even one of them to return to school. And just through our project, through digital education, and through talking to people, it can make such a large impact in people's lives, and I really appreciate that now.
At NVI, one of our main issues was sticking to the itinerary. One of our goals was to stay at Costa de los Pájaros for a week, which is an hour and 30 minutes away from the NVI campus, but it was reduced to 1 day instead. So although our impact was lessened by only being there for 1 day, I think it encouraged the executive from the nonprofit organizations who attended to take more from the workshops and teach it to the members of their organizations. So instead of us teaching them, they got to learn and teach other people, which I think was awesome.
While we navigate this tech issue, I'd like to lead into, if there are more questions, there is one more question before it.
Can I just say that loud about the microphone?
Yeah, just be loud.
I have a question for Tammy about the Multi-Veteran Institute. I may be potentially partnered with them the next year, so I was curious about the process between translating from standard Spanish to Spanish that's used in Costa Rica, and then your process with learning more formal Spanish, because I also feel similar that I excel in conversational Spanish opposed to, I guess, formal/academic to teach a community.
Yeah. Okay. So the person you'll be working with is Irene, the communications director, and they are an awesome person and it's very communicative with you and will let you know everything that's right in your project. They were the main person that kept helping us with the Spanish. I did go a lot to my family to make sure that it made sense, because I know my family and other Latino families will not understand any technology. So I wanted to make sure this was very, very basic language that they would understand, and then I would send it to Irene. I know some of our other project members took the Spanish, Costa Rican Spanish very seriously, and so they would listen to like specific Costa Rican Spanish music, and just get very into Costa Rican Spanish. I just communicated back and forth with Irene, so just make sure to email them, you can trust them, and they'll be very honest with you. Yeah, thank you for the question.
Yeah.
My question is, what is something that you guys learned about the communities you worked with that you weren't expecting or that was surprising?
That's such a good question that we're thinking about it all right now.
Something that really surprised me is how much people really want to learn, but don't have a way to start. I know, for example, I want to always learn things, but I just don't want to learn through like a YouTube video or through like Wikipedia. And I think it's the same issue with a lot of the people in the community we went to. They all wanted to work on something, but they needed someone to help them start. So that's something I was really surprised with a lot of people just really, really wanting to learn.
I think something about the community that I worked with that was sort of eye-opening, or not eye-opening, but really clarified through the project is that it's not that the incarcerated community does not want to grow. They're not given the room to grow. From when we entered the facility from the start, even prior to the facility, before we entered the facility, we had to take a class. And throughout this whole class, they're telling us, these inmates are criminals, they always have bad intentions and stuff like that. And even when we were teaching the classes, Sammy asked one student what was his plans were after. And he didn't really know what to say, and his plans were to return to the levee, which is sort of an unhoused area where there's a lot of drugs and crime. And none of this was because they were not motivated to teach. They were just never given the capacity to grow, and while in the facilities, they were constantly being called derogatory terms, and their expectations were so low that they started to take on this mindset themselves. And that was really eye-opening, and I think it's a huge issue that needs to be addressed.
Okay, thank you. For time's sake, we are now going to be leading into our 15-minute intermission. So feel free to use this time to use the restroom, grab any refreshments, and we will begin again at 6:35. 6:20. 6:20.
Wilson.